Today I'm going to be ranking every single team left in the playoffs on how likely they are to win the Super Bowl. At number 8, I got the Texans, who had actually a really impressive win this week. I mean, they beat the Chargers, who statistically, their offense and their defense were both top 10. Just a very good team. I'm surprised they were able to win that. However, Justin Herbert played like he always does in the playoffs, which is just terrible, and that defense couldn't stop the Texans' pitiful offense. In my opinion, their offense is really holding back that defense. I really like their secondary. Stingley's been playing so good, and Will Anderson and Daniel Hunter are a very formidable edge room. However, their offense really is not very good. Their offensive line is the worst that's remaining in the playoffs. Same with their quarterback, in my opinion. I don't think CJ Stroud's that good. He definitely hasn't played that good this year. That might have been one of his best games, which is just kind of sad. I mean, he played serviceable, nothing special. He did make a couple plays outside the pocket, but he's just not a good enough quarterback, in my opinion, to win the Super Bowl. I really like their skill talent. However, Mixon's been a decent running back. Dameon Pierce is actually a really good backup, and he's super underrated. They also got Nico Collins, who's one of the best receivers in the NFL. But is this team good enough to win a Super Bowl? I doubt it. I mean, I don't think any of these bottom 4 teams can win a Super Bowl, if I'm being honest. This week they play the Chiefs, and I see little way they can escape the Chiefs. Obviously, if they do, then they're Super Bowl contenders, and they're going to prove me wrong, because anybody is once they get that far in the playoffs. The Chiefs are just such a more well-rounded team that there's just no way that happens. At number 7, I got the Commanders. They're just slightly above the Texans because I like their quarterback a little bit better. I do think Jaden Daniels is a little bit overrated, just not to the point of CJ Stroud. And I really like their run game because that's been one of their most underrated points of their offense. I think they've been able to move the ball with Brian Robinson, and that offensive line has been so much better than it is on paper. And their defense has definitely been better, especially as of late. I mean, they held the Buccaneers to, I think, 20 points, which is very good, especially the Buccaneers. Their one thing is their offense, how top-notch it is. However, their defense is awful, which does make me worry a little bit about the Commanders' offense, since they weren't able to put enough points up to win the game outside of overtime. Obviously, they ended up going and kicking the game winner. But I do really worry about this Commanders defense, against the better offenses. I know the Buccaneers offense is pretty good, but when they play the Eagles or the Lions, I just don't know what they'll be able to do. Especially if they can make it to the Super Bowl. I doubt they can, but if they play the Ravens, I just don't see a way they can win, which is why they're at number 7. At 6 is probably the most shocking one on here. It's going to be the Eagles. I just watched my Packers lose to them, and I know, that should make me want to put them higher, but they played a really bad game. I mean, the Packers lost their wide receiver 1, 2, and 3 in that game. Their best guard, and then they had no other guards on their roster, so they resorted to playing tackles there, and they played so bad. They got benched. More came in. They had 4 holding calls. It was so bad. Jordan Love couldn't do much in that offense, and the Packers defense was pretty good in the first half. In the second half, it was just awful. And if we could stop Saquon, then their offense just stopped. Jalen Hurts looked awful, as he always does. Pretty big system quarterback. I mean, he's better than some of the other quarterbacks like CJ Stroud, but I don't think he's a Super Bowl quarterback. I mean, that game was super rigged, and if you watch the game, you'd know, because first play, they get a lucky fumble recovery on the kickoff, which we recovered again, and they gave it to them for no reason. And then later in the game, on a touchdown pass that ended up getting picked off in the end zone, they tackled our guy. So, if those two things switch up, I think the Packers win this game. And I don't think the Packers are that good of a team. So that really just makes me skeptical on the Eagles. They just are not very well-coached team. And if you stop Saquon, you basically stop their whole offense. So I think maybe even the Rams, this week will end up beating them. With that being said, at number 5, I got the Rams. They're a pretty good team. I mean, they just destroyed the 14-3 Vikings. Obviously, we all knew they were frauds, and Sam Darnold wasn't very good. But that defense looks really good. Jared Verse, that whole young defensive line, just such good players. Secondary has been good too. They were able to shut down Justin Jefferson again for the second week in a row. Justin Jefferson's been shut down. And that offense is definitely their biggest strength. I mean, Kyron Williams getting so many carries and has some of the best vision in the NFL. Along with that, their passing game is elite with the best wide receiver duo in the NFL. This is definitely a Super Bowl caliber team. I don't know if they quite have the depth to be able to make that Super Bowl push, but it wouldn't shock me if they ended up making it. At number 4, I got the Buffalo Bills. This one's not going to surprise very many people unless I thought they'd be higher. They did just destroy the Broncos. It did feel like they just wanted to hurt the Broncos. I mean, they were winning the whole game, really, except for the beginning, and they just kept throwing the ball instead of just running out the clock. But they did show their dominance, and they looked really good. I know the Broncos' offense isn't very good, but that defense did a really nice job. Holding anybody to 7 points, even if it is a rookie quarterback, is very impressive. And I really like what James Cook's able to do in that run game, and Josh Allen really opens up the offense in so many ways that just other quarterbacks aren't able to do, especially the ones below him on this list. I do think sometimes their defense gets pretty hit or miss. Some games it's been awful, against the Rams, they allowed 45. They've had other games where they just haven't showed up, but if they can show up in this playoff run, they can win a Super Bowl. It's just a matter if they can. At number 3, I got the Lions. They'd probably be one for me if it wasn't for all their injuries. Montgomery's coming back, but what we've seen from Jahmyr Gibbs, does that hurt them? I like him as a running back. He's a really good player, but I think they give him the ball a little too much. Like, you saw Jahmyr Gibbs as a bell cow, and he looked really great. I think they need to make sure that he's just the goal line back and the short yardage back rather than like a split carries guy. But also their defense is super injured. Amik Robertson's their number 1 corner, and he's 5'8" in garbage. And their safety duo is really good, but that's really the only bright spot on this defense since they don't have really much of a pass rush. Aleem McNeil and Aiden Hutchinson are their 2 best players on that defensive line, and they're both hurt. Zadarius Smith's solid, but he doesn't have anybody next to him, and they're just not able to make plays like you need to win a Super Bowl. Obviously, Hutchinson said he might come back for the Super Bowl or the championship game, but if they can make it to there and he comes back fully healthy, they could easily win the Super Bowl, which is why I'm this high, but I do doubt that. I just don't know if this thin of a roster will be able to do it since of all the injuries they've been able to have. At 2, I got the Baltimore Ravens, who I think will win the Super Bowl. Their team isn't as thin as who I have at number 1, but they easily have the best quarterback in the NFL. That defense has been so good ever since moving Kyle Hamilton out of the slot and back to safety where he belongs. This defense has went from one of the worst pass defenses to maybe the best pass defense in the NFL, and their run defense was not hurt at all by him moving to safety, and they've still been very good in that department. Along with that, they have one of the best tight ends duos in the NFL, and the receivers are so good at getting open, and Derrick Henry is easily the second best running back in the NFL, and he's able to open up the offense much more, especially with Lamar's ability to scramble. They're able to have that 2-headed backfield sort of with him and Lamar, along with Lamar being able to throw the ball. This is just the best offense in the NFL. At number 1, I got the Chiefs. We haven't seen them play in the playoffs, so this could be a huge disappointment, but they always turn it on even more in the playoffs, and they're a very talented and stacked team. And even though Mahomes hasn't played that good this season, I have no doubt that he won't turn it up in the playoffs. Obviously, if he doesn't, they plummet to like 5. But what we've seen from them this year, even with him playing bad, is just so impressive. That offensive line, especially the interior, is like the best in the NFL. And the defense, super good, very talented. Trent McDuffie's one of the best corners in the NFL, in my opinion. And Chris Jones has been playing at a very high level this season while he's been healthy. Thank you guys all for watching. Make sure you guys like and subscribe and turn on some notifications so you can make sure that you get notified every time I post a video so you don't miss any of them. It really helps me and the channel and you because you get more ball knowledge. And see you next time.